Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The damp chill of the basement crept under Carmen's jacket as she descended the narrow metal stairs into the archives of the Department of Historical Records. She adjusted the camera strapped around her neck and pulled the laptop from her satchel. The air smelled of dust and old paper, a scent she had grown fond of over the years. Carmen Vega was a professional archivist hired by governments and institutions to digitize and catalog their oldest, most fragile records. It was tedious, but it paid well, and she liked the solitude. This job took place in a sprawling government complex on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., a building so old it seemed to have folded into the earth. The archivist department occupied the lowest floors, far from daylight. Her task was simple: digitize a series of files that had been stored in the vault for decades but never entered the digital age. When the department head, a stoic man named Grayson, handed her the key and a cart loaded with folders, he made it clear to keep everything discreet. Carmen expected the usual mix of old memos, census rolls, and forgotten bureaucratic filings. But hours into sorting through documents marked with Project Origin and Dossier Alpha, the monotony broke. It was during her coffee break that her eyes caught something odd. A small folder, nestled between thick files of espionage intelligence reports and cryptography records. The label was faint but readable: Personal Files, Vega, Carmen. She blinked, her heart skipping a beat. She wasn't expecting to find files about herself here. No one knew she was working in this building yet, only her contract officer and Grayson. Her name on government documents was something she'd encountered only when requesting background checks or passports, and never in classified records. Curiosity bloomed into a nervous panic. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a thin stack of papers, its edges yellowed and brittle. The very first sheet was a photocopy of her birth certificate, dated 1975. That was normal, her actual birth year. But then the next page threw her an entirely new puzzle. A dossier listing, subject Vega Carmen, with dates spanning back to 1967. Before she was born. She blinked, scanning the pages. There were clinical notes, medical reports, sociological evaluations, and cryptic annotations penned in hurried handwriting. The subject, Vega Carmen, was referenced repeatedly as part of an ongoing government experiment catalogued under Project Echo. Her breath caught in her throat. What was this mad trick? Carmen traced the dates again. The files described tests performed on a genetic prototype, coded as CV67. Reports mentioned accelerated cognitive developments, memory imprinting, and a test subject described as stable but unpredictable. The subject showed knowledge of government secrets not publicly disclosed. There were warnings about psychological deterioration and a cold notation: repeat extraction scheduled in 1974. But Carmen was born in 1975, and yet here she was, referenced in this experimental dossier before that time, as if an earlier version of herself had been catalogued and monitored years before her recorded birth date. She nearly dropped the folder. What kind of government program kept shadow files on her before she existed? Or was it a case of identity theft, some administrative blunder, or sheer fiction? A shiver crept along her spine as she slipped the documents into her satchel and hurried back upstairs for the relative warmth of daylight and fresh air. That night, Carmen sat in her tiny apartment, the dossier sprawled across her kitchen table. She scanned every page carefully in the glow of her laptop screen, cross-referencing names, project titles, and coded notes. The project names cropped up elsewhere on the internet, but only in fragmented conspiracy theories here and there about unethical governmental scientific experiments in the Cold War era. Nothing officially verified, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger, more dangerous, was lurking just beyond her grasp. As the midnight hour deepened, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered cautiously. "Ms. Vega, you need to stop digging," said a deep voice, distorted slightly by a voice modulator. Her stomach clenched. "Who is this? A friend? Or at least someone trying to keep you safe? You have no idea what you're touching. Why? What is this? Why do you have files on me?" The line went dead. She sat frozen, trying to fight the rising tide of dread. This was no coincidence. Someone was watching, tracking her. And those files, they weren't just dusty archives. They were a beacon, drawing something out from the shadows. The next day, Carmen returned to the archive with a plan. She would find out about Project Echo, and what it had to do with her. The basement was quieter in the early morning, the only sound the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional shuffle of pages. She plugged in her laptop, connected to the building's secure network, and began digging through other digitized records, cross-checking any references to Project Echo and CV-67. In one folder, she uncovered a series of classified reports authored by Dr. Martin Helms, the lead researcher on Project Echo, who disappeared in 1980 under mysterious circumstances. His notes described a biological prototype, created by combining advanced genetic engineering with early artificial intelligence algorithms. The goal was to create a human with pre-installed memories and capabilities, effectively a living archive of government secrets and strategies. One passage hit Carmen like a blow. The subject, CV-67, shows capabilities aligning with target personality born 1975, indicating successful data imprinting of future self in genetic template. Subject retains cognitive continuity despite temporal displacement. Ethical considerations overshadowed by strategic value. She shook her head, trying to make sense of the jargon. A living person with memories and knowledge from her own future? The thought bordered on madness, but the document suggested it was real, experimental science. Suddenly, the lights flickered overhead. Carmen looked up, heart pounding. A shadow moved just beyond the stacks of files. "Hello, Carmen," a voice said softly. She whirled around, but the figure disappeared before she could see a face. Only a chilling message whispered in her ear. "Some memories are meant to stay buried." Her courage faltered, but a stubborn resolve swept over her. She couldn't walk away. If this was her story, her true origin, she had to uncover it fully. Weeks passed in a blur of code-breaking, interviews with retired scientists she found off the grid, and clandestine surveillance. Each clue pieced together a terrifying tapestry. Project Echo was a Cold War-era secret program designed to produce children with artificially implanted futures to outmaneuver foreign intelligence. Carmen was the product of one such experiment, a living time anomaly engineered to hold classified knowledge across timelines. Her very existence disrupted the fabric of normal history, making her a target. One stormy evening, Carmen's apartment was broken into. The intruders made no attempt to hide their intentions, rummaging for the dossier and any digital backups she held. She had barely escaped through a back window, phone clutched in hand, heart hammering as rain soaked her hair. The chase was on. Carmen reached out to an old friend from her university days, Elias, now a cybersecurity expert. Together, they devised a plan to leak the Project Echo files publicly, exposing the truth and safeguarding her identity by forcing the government's hand. But as they prepared the final upload, a message appeared on her encrypted contacts. "Meet me at the old Helms facility at midnight. Alone. Answers await." The Helms facility was a long-forgotten research station outside the city, shuttered after the Project Echo program ended. No one had entered for decades. Against all reason, Carmen went. The night was pitch black, the moonless sky blanketed with thick clouds. She cradled a flashlight and weapon in her hands, the echo of footsteps her only companion. The silence of the derelict building was oppressive, broken only by the creak of metal doors and the whisper of wind through cracked windows. In the main lab, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, older but with strikingly familiar eyes. "Carmen," the woman said, voice shaking with emotion. "I'm Dr. Helms. All this time, you were alive?" Carmen whispered in disbelief. Dr. Helms nodded, eyes haunted. "I couldn't let the program die. Not when you are the key to its future. You're not just a project, you're my daughter." Carmen's mind reeled. The government wanted to erase all traces. "You're a living archive, yes, but also a weapon. I built you to carry knowledge from a timeline that never should have been. There are forces that want to control that knowledge. That control you." The older woman stepped forward, reaching out trembling hands. "It's time you choose what kind of future you want. To be their asset, their prisoner, or to break free, write your own story." Tears blurred Carmen's vision as years of confusion and fear welled to the surface. "I'm not a project," she said fiercely. "I'm a person, and I'm taking back my life." With Dr. Helms's help, Carmen sabotaged the remaining data cores in the facility, erasing the last remnants of Project Echo's secrets. The files she had digitized were uploaded to a secure independent platform, made public to prevent further covert manipulation. Her life would never be the same. She remained hunted, a living paradox of time and government secrets. But the truth was hers now, a new archive of identity forged not by shadows or experiments, but by her own determination. And in the quiet moments when the world around her settled, Carmen knew that some memories, some histories, no longer belonged to anyone but herself. For more stories, like and subscribe.